welcome to the B Team Podcast. I am your host, Josh Safran, with my co-host,
Matt Mars,
and our permanent guest,
Rob Nelson.
We're here every week to talk to you about all things Bentonville, bourbon, and business. The B Team Podcast. Be here. Welcome to the B Team Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Safran, along with my co-host,
Matt Mars.
Matt Mars with no hat on, Matt Mars.
I had to kind of up my game a little bit for Donnie over here.
I mean, it's a special occasion. I didn't even recognize you. And our permanent guest did not make it today.
Well, I mean, we were due. It's been 3 or 4 weeks that he's been here in a row. So.
All the vacation time and travel. I mean, this guy, I don't know. But we do have Mr. Hubbard here today from Hubbard's Clothing.
Hubbard Clothing Company.
The man, the myth, the legend. And again, we had to put on jackets today. I don't know the last time we put on a sport coat.
Yeah, what's funny is I dressed down because I knew I was coming to see you guys. I want to make you feel bad.
And we dressed up for you. Somehow there was a miss along the way.
Exactly.
Well, we're here every Thursday for all things business, Bentonville, and bourbon. And again, when we were going through who do we need to get on the show, a classic act, a man who drinks a lot of bourbon with us. That's right. Has got a cool drinking spot, which we'll get into at the shop as well. Fantastic clothing. I mean, just the premier spot to go get clothing in Northwest Arkansas, and just a class act I've got to know over the past couple of years. So we'll do a toast. This is the Frank August small batch that Russ has reviewed with us, and I'd love to get your guys' perspective on this one. First time for both of you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wonder if it tastes different wearing the clothes that we're wearing right now. You know,
it makes you feel like more of a gentleman.
Yeah, it does. Pretty good.
Nice. You have to ask for the Grey Poupon or something a little fancy.
Gotta get my
finger out. You like this?
Interesting. Yeah.
It's interesting doesn't mean good.
No, it is good. It's just got a real oaky taste on the end.
Yeah.
Any stone fruit for you today? Any creme brulee? Every time Russ is in here, he's always saying, catching them stewed bananas. So we're now we're asking
roasted papaya.
And I'm over here laughing like I'm 12.
No, this is really good.
It's tasty, right?
Yeah.
I think so, too. Emily got this for me for a gift when she went to Kentucky. And so I just recently found the single barrel. So it's I think it's allocated, hard to find-ish, but it's just not a brand that most people are paying attention to.
Yeah. No, it's a cool bottle, though.
I do like that.
I love the bottle.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Aesthetics.
Yeah. Very simple.
It's half the battle.
Speaking of aesthetics, I want to hear about Hubbard Clothing and I guess how you got to be where you were, because you didn't come from a lot of money.
Correct.
Right? And you've told me this story before, but I knew that you grew up and you are wearing $5,000 suits in your home.
No, absolutely not.
So how did this whole thing become a passion for you, and how did it get started?
How long have we got on this? Am I serious?
Give us the abridged version.
Yeah. I'll cut it short. Moved from when I was a kid. I grew up in Los Angeles, and in 1989, I was 13 years old, and I moved to Fort Smith from L.A. Big move, and even worse. I didn't even move to Fort Smith. I moved to Rudy, just north of Bentonville.
In 1989?
Yes.
So any growth that we've seen in the last 20 years, 30 years, 1989 was a different place.
Oh, yeah. It was.
Well, and no one's like Rudy, we've all see the sign.
Yeah, exactly.
But how many people have been?
Have you been in Rudy?
The population of Rudy at the time, they literally had a sign up that said population 72.
And then somebody died the next day, you'd have to go out.
Yeah, exactly.
71.
Exactly. But, we moved to Rudy. And we basically, the first week we were in town, we we're a super religious family, still are. And we went to this church in Fort Smith, and I met a guy who his family owned a men's clothing store in Fort Smith. And I remember just almost instantaneously, I was like, that's a cool cat, because he was just so striking. He dressed.
How old were you?
13.
Okay.
13.
And you're wearing blue jeans. I mean, you're yourself like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I don't even know what I was wearing.
Yep.
I was so not cognizant of anything going on there. Probably no kidding. Probably jeans from Kmart, not even Walmart, and that was kind of where I was at. And I meet this guy. He's super well spoken, good looking cat. Drove a BMW. dressed to the nines. Everybody loved him. And I was like, I want to be that guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I was just like, this guy has got it all together and he's wealthy. And then I heard just through being around people that they weren't wealthy. He owned a men's clothing, or his family owned a men's clothing store. And he got to dress that way, you know? And there was a Boy Scout kind of group at the church called Royal Rangers that he was the leader of. And so as one of the kids in the group, I just kind of like attached myself to his hip. And so fast forward, like he's kind of mentoring me in the organization, and we would travel together all over the country. My brother and I would with him, and because he was a public speaker for that organization, and we would just tag along just to go on cool trips because we couldn't afford to. And he was getting paid to come out and speak to these different places. And so we'd just tag along and help him drive. And, you know, it was when I was about 16. And we'd go camping and listen to him do the speaking part and then go grab a great dinner and then drive back home from New Mexico, right?
Jeez.
And anyway, because of that whole situation, we became super close, both of our families. And I look back now and I'm like, I was a stupid 13-year-old kid, and this guy was like 35, you know, at the time. And the fact that he like took an interest in me at 13, 14, and like I remember when he was like throwing me GQ magazines, the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. And he would get on to me about the way I would dress and how stupid it was, and then tell me why. And then I would be like reading articles about stuff, you know. And
Super cool.
yeah, it was cool.
But I think today, like, would you let your 13-year-old
No.
run around the country with
No.
a stranger, right? No, but I mean,
yeah,
it's a very different world we lived in.
No.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I look back on this, and the fact that this guy like was that nice and took such an interest in me personally, and took it upon himself to mentor me, and what I do understand now that I own a men's clothing store is I'm always looking for quality guys, and if you can train those guys
Yes.
and make them what you want them to be, then like so eventually when I was 19 years old, he finally had a guy at his store quit, which I'm sure he was anticipating for a long time. And when that
Slid
guy,
right in.
yeah, he calls me up. He's like, Donnie, let's go. And so I started selling clothes when I was 19 at his shop. And loved it. I stepped in. I was the first employee of that store in the store's history to ever outsell any of the family members. And it was just because I would watch Paul and basically regurgitate everything he would say and everything he would do. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, well, it worked for him.
But how much of it, particularly at 19, and I've seen you do it now, and you do it with ease because I don't ever see you do a hard sell. You're very good at understanding what the person is looking for, making them feel comfortable.
Sure.
Were you able to do that at 19? Like, was it more of a learning for you?
So I will say this: at 19, it was 1995, 6, something like that. And back then, if somebody was coming in the store, they were buying 3 or 4 suits, right, or a couple of sport coats and a couple of suits. Like, it wasn't even work back then to sell something, and so. The difference in times, and I know we want to get into that a little bit, but you didn't even really have to try. So there were guys in the store. Well, guys, it was family. There was 2 brothers, Paul and Gail. Gail was a little bit more like always pushing people to buy. He's a hard sell. He was that guy. Paul was the guy that everybody, you know, he was super smiley and super personable, and he was laid back. Probably a little bit too laid back, right? Compared to Gail. So I was like, there's got to be a happy medium here, but I wanted to be liked the way Paul was liked. And so I just watched him with his relationships. And this family, they weren't really into like having interpersonal relationships, which is a weird thing to say. But like when business was done, they went home to their families and that was it. They didn't go to events. They didn't go to their clients' homes and go to Christmas parties.
Yep.
I was the one that was like, and again, I was a super poor kid, so when some wealthy person is like, hey, you want to come to our Christmas party? Yes, I do.
Yeah, you're like,
Whether it's appropriate or not, I'm like, yeah, I want to see the place, you know? And so I just kind of started honing like those personal relationship skills. And And again, just watching the way the guys sold and the comments that were made by some people as opposed to others, I really was cognizant of when I would be selling, what people's reactions would be to. You can push, and there's some people that want you to be selling to them. People want to be sold. And there's other people that don't even want you to talk to them. They don't want you to look at them.
But how do you find that balance? Like when we go to the gents' place and people walk in, you try to figure out quickly who's the best person to cut my hair. I go, do you like to talk or do you not like to talk, right? Because if you like to talk, we're going to put you with these 3 or 4 people. How's their haircuts? They're all good. Yeah. But like, how do you figure out when somebody walks in the door around, how are you are you letting them engage you, or like what triggers you to figure out I have to be more outgoing, a little bit laid back? Like,
I think at that point, like when somebody walks into the store, and we always greet them like and do it. There's a few things you never say in retail. Like one is, how can I help you, or may I help you? Because it's Pavlovian response. We've all been trained to say, just looking.
Yeah.
May I help you? Just looking.
Yeah.
And so one thing I've really, really tried to hammer into my guys is that phrase never comes out of your mouth. Just have a conversation, right? And you'll learn pretty quickly if somebody wants you to bother them or not, right? And so the body language of somebody walking in, our place is intimidating. You walk in the door, it's beautiful, it's overwhelming, got beautiful things, and it's not a huge space, but it's it can feel like people are on you pretty quickly.
Yep. But there's probably times when somebody will walk in, spend 2 or 3 minutes, just walk out, and probably not even a conversation at all, right? I mean,
no, I always try to engage somebody.
Okay.
Yeah. I try to make them talk to me because I'm a talker.
Well, but
and it serves me well.
Well, you walk in there, the place is beautiful, and you start looking at pricing, and immediately you don't want somebody coming over and going, this is expensive, and
Yeah.
But I think finding that balance where
I think we're really good at, we obviously, it's so cliche to say, we don't judge anybody that walks in. But the reality is everybody makes a snap decision about everybody based on their appearance, right? It's the very first point of contact is visual, right? Which is why your business is so important. If somebody walks in and they look like they haven't had a haircut in 6 years, you make a very different judgment.
Sometimes it's the wrong. Many times it's the wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's what we do. And then same thing with clothing, right? So, a perfect example. A couple of weeks ago, I had these 2 guys walk in, and they looked like they did not belong anywhere near my store, right? And
so was it me and you?
Pretty much.
That's a good reference. You and I walked in front.
Pretty sure one of them was in a hat.
Yeah. He's like, Matt's wanting to go fishing. I know he's not going to buy anything.
There were these 2 guys, and they came in, and they were just looking around, and I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to make these dudes love me. Like, that was, I didn't even care about the clothes. I wasn't trying to sell them anything. I was just like, when those dudes walked in, I could see on their faces that their instantaneous thought was in the wrong spot, And then I thought, I'm going to make these dudes love me.
So you didn't sell them anything?
No. I didn't even try.
But they felt like, oh, this is, I don't feel out of place.
I wanted them to leave the store and call anybody they knew that shopped that way and say, dude, this guy's the nicest guy I've ever met. You got to go check this place out.
Yeah, so, it's like that scene in Pretty Woman, right, where she goes in and
I never want to be accused.
You don't want to be that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You never want to be that. No, you always treat everybody good.
So these dudes walk in. One of them literally had tattoos down to his fingernails, and he actually was wearing a ball cap. And the other guy looked really unkempt and like
may have been. May have been Post Malone in there.
Exactly. And so I'm talking to these guys, and I was like, "Hey, let me show you something." Like, here's the store. This is the star of the show.
The back.
Yeah, I was like, "We got something way cooler back here." So I take them into the back because it's disarming. It's neutral ground. It's the cool kids club, right? And it's where there's no clothing, so they don't feel like they're being sold. And they're like, "What is this?" And then we start talking, and I'm like, "Hey, what do you guys do?" "Oh, we're executive chefs." I was like, awesome.
That is cool.
Yeah, the guy with the tats had like a farm-to-table restaurant in Seattle or somewhere in Portland, somewhere up northwest. Northwest.
But that down the road will bring you business.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And like those
Because
dudes
they're opening a place here probably.
Yeah, like, I mean,
so
it was a really cool experience, and I could tell when they left, they were like, dude, that guy's the nicest dude I've ever met.
Well, and you didn't judge them like you did, but you didn't, right? Like you knew that it wasn't going to be a $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 sale,
Right?
But you wanted them to feel also comfortable in your shop because.
And these dudes are, I guessed correctly, man. These dudes are in influential positions in places that are probably coming here and probably where they'll have influential people engaging with them. So I just wanted them to feel like they could walk in anytime and hang out. I've opened a bottle of bourbon. And I was like, oh, you got to try this. This is really good. Yeah, because we got onto the bourbon subject and all that. So we just try to make it a point to engage people, because if they're there for clothing, it's gonna come around.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then we just kind of, we try to not be offensive at starting at the top, but we'll show them the nicest thing we got, and then you can tell pretty quickly if you need to play it down and be like, yeah, it's crazy.
So I was going to ask you that. So some people walk in the door there and you know who they are immediately, and immediately you go, I'm going to put them in the high price tier because I know that they either I've seen clothes they're wearing on social media, or I've seen them in town, or I know how much money they make. Others, like they walk in, like if I walked in for the first time,
we show everybody everything.
Okay,
at the top.
Right at the top immediately.
Yeah. Start at the top, go down.
Okay.
Like if I show you a $5,000 jacket and you're like, yo, you got the wrong idea. I'm like, no, this is what we do to everybody. Like, I'm no respecter of humans. Like,
And so then
I assume everybody wants to spend $5,000 on a jacket when they walk in.
And you're telling yourself and your team that, and that's why you start there. Because if you also had a guy walk in that would have spent $5,000 and you start him at $1,000,
and if he likes the $1,000 and didn't see the $5 yet, and
shame on you guys.
yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
And so it's an easy gauge of like, well, if you're looking for a suit, check this out. This is the best thing we got. and I just say it like, this is the best thing we got. And then they'll let you know, well, I'm not looking for the best thing you got.
I'm looking for slightly above average. And you go, I got that over here.
Yeah. And so the funny thing is, man, we're stupid animals, man. We absolutely are.
Yeah.
We like to relate everything to something simple, right? And so one of the things that I do to kind of get people on board with exactly what they're looking at is I compare clothing to cars, right? Listen, everything in the store is a luxury vehicle, right? They all do the same job. They get you from point A to point B. It's just when you get into a Cadillac, it's nice. It drives. It smells a certain way. It's made very well. It's nice, whatever. But then when you get into a Mercedes, it makes you feel different. You're perceived differently. But then when you get into a Ferrari, it does the same job, but it feels different. It drives different. People look at you differently.
So I'm going to put you on the spot. So you like toys. You have things and you buy things. But in that analogy right there, you would be a Ferrari guy in the car mode, but you don't wear dressy clothes enough to say I would shop clothing like a Ferrari. You'd maybe do the Cadillac or the Mercedes. Like walk me through that.
So like, to be fair, I like my favorite pair of pants that I have are from Donnie, and I went in there and he knows that I'm cheap. So like when I went in there, he's like, Matt, we're all the winter stuff is closed out or whatever. Like he knows.
Ding ding. So you knew right away.
So I go over there and I try these pants on, and they're just like the most comfortable pants. And I've never shopped at a really nice store like yours.
Sure.
So like I tried them on in the waiting room, or I mean in the changing room.
Not in the waiting room.
I looked at them, I was like, oh, I love these. I'll get them. So I take them off and I bring them up to hand them to him with some shirts and stuff. And he's like, well, I need to go put them all back on. And I was like, well, why? And he's like, well, we're going to like fit you. And I was like, oh, I get all that too. So like I was like, oh, they're a little bit, the length's a little bit long, but it's fine. So like you don't realize, or I didn't, that it's kind of like you're getting, a custom tailored set of clothes.
Yeah.
That's for you. That's part of that. Like, yes, they are more expensive, but I think when you put all of the things that you get with them to make them just for you. It's I don't think it's
an experience.
Yeah, it's not. So it's like Carrie always tells me, she's like, why don't you go get some more of those pants down there? So
Dude,
I need to come see you.
If your female in your life is not a good motivator, I don't know what is.
I have about 5 or 6 articles of clothing from there, and they are my favorite. Like, but there's also ones like you have to wear them for special occasion because it's one of those people, you want people to go, oh, like, look what you're wearing today. And you know what's interesting? And you know me, I'm a basketball shorts, T-shirt guy for many years. Anytime I put on something from his store, I always get some. Where'd you get that from? Like all the time. And I'm like, but it's truth, and it's people like,
listen.
like when I'm dressing casual regularly and I put something nice on. First of all, you get so many compliments. Like, where are you going to? I'm like, to work. Why are you wearing this? I don't know. I thought I'd put on I love those pants. Where'd you get them from? Hubbard. It's like that's always the way the conversation goes.
Oh, listen, when we have a guy who's kind of not into it, and like we do try to stretch our clients because we know it's not just about like raising the average ticket, right? We never discuss sales tactics. Like my team and I, we discuss relationships. Like, how's this dude doing? Have you heard from him lately? Like, what's going on in his life? Has anybody reached out? Like, we know he likes this product.
This would be a client that you've already had.
Yeah. And so, like, we're constantly like, hey, you need to do this for this guy, or that dude just bought the nicest thing in the store. Like, what are we going to do here? Like, so we're constantly.
And you don't have to do any of that. Like,
no,
that's super classy.
Yeah, it's I had a client. I won't call him out, but he came in, bought a very expensive belt from us not too long ago, and he was buying the belt to wear to a particular event the next day he was traveling to, and that night I'm literally walking out of Harps at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, and the belt had a malfunction. It was a cut to size belt, so it has a screw that you cut the belt to the perfect size for the guy, punch a hole, and then it screws together, and it's a very expensive belt, alligator, whatever. And I'm walking out of Harps with food for my family, like where I'm getting ready to go cook. It's kind of late, which is weird. But I got my groceries, and I get a phone call from him, and he's like, Donnie, my belt just fell apart, and I can't, fix it. I was like, I'm on my way. Drop me a pen. And he is like, I'm so sorry. I was like, why? So he drops me a pin. He lived downtown Bentonville, right? On Central
direction.
Yeah. I'm in Springdale. And so I immediately jump in my car, and I'm already driving towards the interstate. And I call my wife, and I was like, hey, my guy that just bought some stuff from me has got a trip tomorrow, and belt malfunction, and I gotta go fix it. And so on the way up, I stopped by the store because we had another one of those belts because I didn't know what the problem was. I just grabbed another one, and then I go straight to his house and walk in, and I'm like, let me see what we got. Screw was stripped. I had the other one, fixed it. He's like, dude, thank you so much. I was like, Martin, that's why. Yeah, it's like that's why you shop with me.
But now, are there any more of those belts? Because Matt's in the running for a new expensive.
I mean, I could get the one. Maybe I get the one with the strip screw.
Yeah, already a new screw. But it's kind of been used before. So he's looking for a discount on it.
Well, it's already been cut. And mine probably can't be cut.
I figure like a $3,000 belt, he could probably sell it to you for like $2,600.
Yeah.
But that was just a service thing. It was
they're beating him down on. I
literally was like, this is an opportunity. Like it wasn't like, oh my God, I gotta go do this. I was like, opportunity.
Well, the problem was you have to make up for the wife and family at home, right? Because it was a balance of
absolutely.
But it was the right thing to do for your client. I mean,
it's the right thing to do. It's an opportunity to, one of my mentors later on in my career gave me a book called Raving Fans, and I'm sure you've heard of it. And it's such a goofy, simple book, but it's true. Like if you can create raving fans, then you'll have clients for life. And even more importantly, as you guys probably know, like, yes, I want everybody to shop with me, and we want to do good business and all that. But we like having friends. We make legitimate friendships and relationships out of most of our clients, and we want that relationship to be a real one, not just a transactional relationship. Because that's not long term, and B, that's just not as fun.
Yeah, we talked about that a lot in here. Relational selling versus transactional. We had Ozark Mountain Bagel on. We had everybody that's come through there. We had Mark Hubbard from Chick-fil-A. Everybody says the same thing about, I am selling a widget in this community, but we're building and selling our brand and relationships. And I mean, that's the biggest theme we've had all year long. Is everybody's talking the same way. And it is a piece of clothing that you will wear.
Sure.
But that's really not what you're selling, right? You're selling the whole experience and the relationship you're creating from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have people ask me all the time, like, what? Yeah, because we're in a transient market, right? Like, we have a lot of executive guys that come here, they love it, but then they, do really well. They play for the Yankees. They don't know who the Yankees are, and then they go out and find another gig that's probably a COO, CFO, whatever. And I have tons of those guys, like, who still want me to facilitate their clothing,
even though they no longer live here.
Yeah,
that should tell you something.
It's because of the relationship. It's not because It's not because they can't find the same thing that I'm selling in the town where they're living, because that's absolutely true. In fact, I had one guy who used to work for Starbucks here. He was a Starbucks team lead, and then he went back to Seattle, and then he calls me up one day, and he was like, "Hey, man, I really need some clothes. I haven't shopped in a while." I was like, "Dude, you live in Seattle. Like, Mario's is one of the nicest stores in the country." And he is like, "Okay, two things. One, I actually moved out of Seattle because I'm in Boise, Idaho." And he said, "Two, I like every single thing I've ever bought from you, and I like you a lot. So he said, you know my style, and you're my guy." And I was like, "Oh, that's really cool." I was like, "Boise, huh? Maybe I'll make a trip." And he was like, "Oh, you don't have to do that." I was like, "Nah, you don't understand. Maybe I'll make a trip. I'll come see you, and then I'm going fishing."
I was going to say, from fishing,
I know why
fishing
you're
aspect
out there.
I was like,
this was Chicago.
That's only
or
2 hours from Ketchum.
Yeah.
So, I went up and sold him a bunch of clothes, and he was like, over the moon that I would, and finally we're at dinner. So it was really cool. I shipped all the stuff up to his country club, or I shipped it to his house, and then we met at his country club. And then, we went into the locker room, pulled everything out. He picked everything he liked. I did all the fittings. We threw it all back in the box so I could send it home and tailor it. I'd put a small roll of tape and a label in the box already. So as soon as we got done, put the label on, taped it up, went and gave it to the shoe shine kid, and was like, "Hey, can this go out tomorrow?" And then we went upstairs. We had dinner in the restaurant at his country club.
Classic.
And he's like, "What are you doing
So
now?"
cool.
And that's when I was like, "All right, I'm going to be."
I got to shoot you straight.
Now my trip starts.
My brother-in-law is flying here as we speak, and tomorrow morning we're driving to Ketchum for
So as
3
much
days.
as I love you, if you were in Milwaukee, I probably wouldn't have made this trip.
True.
Well, that's
Solid statement.
I like that.
But so it's fun having relationships like that they like you enough and they trust you enough, and and the stuff we carry is it speaks for itself. We don't have to try to explain why Canali is good.
Yep.
It's well known worldwide.
But I do want to hit on, because Matt's uncomfortable in the jacket, so I do want to hit on the fishing and some of the other stuff.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
This is going to be more in our sweet spot. But so you had multiple clothing stores, and then you had one on the square here, you had one down in Fayetteville, and you kind of pivoted a bit.
Yes.
Closed the one on the square here. The one in Fayetteville is a super cool concept that doesn't sell clothes, but everybody thinks it is when you walk past.
Right.
And then I want to talk about that, and then I want to hear about what you're doing out on the river. So just give us a little bit of the expansion that you had the last couple of years, and who you're trying to target and what you're trying to do.
Sure. Almost everything outside of the Rogers store has kind of been accidental. Everything in Rogers has been very on purpose. Like, everything in that building and store is well thought out and has a concept and had a vision for what it was. And so when we opened the store, we wanted it to be very experiential, right? And with the art on the ceilings, with the barbershop in the front, with everything else, I'd always had a spot in the store, no matter what store I've been in, where people would congregate and hang out. At times it was just a couch with a TV in front of it surrounded by the rest of the store, right? But it was so comfortable of an environment, people would always want to come and spend a little bit of time. And it made me realize, like, if I can capture people's time in the store and keep them here a little bit longer, and bourbon doesn't hurt anything either, then they'll inadvertently shop more or bring more people in to see the store.
Ding, ding, ding. Yep.
They'll be new customers. And so when we did the Rogers space, I wanted a lounge that didn't have, and this goes back to like bringing those guys back there where there's no clothes. I didn't want clothes in the lounge. I wanted it to just be a lounge. And then I went to a couple of cool shops, one in Milan, one in Vegas, where the concepts were like the Vegas one, they had lockers for their best clients to keep a bottle of bourbon. And I was like, that's cool. And then shop in Milan that I went to was like, I wish I could pull this off because I'm in this really cool shop in the nicest shopping district in Milan. Great friend of mine owns it. And we walk into this little lounge space. And I was like, what is this? He goes, oh, this is where we pick out custom stuff. And he said, clients can just hang out. And I was like, do you allow them to smoke a cigar in here? He's like, in a real thick Italian accent. He goes, Donnie, when they're spending 50,000 euros on clothes, we let them do whatever they want to do.
Exactly.
I was like, I dig it, And so we really wanted to figure out the cigar thing. It just wasn't possible for a lot of reasons. Mm-hmm. But we do have a little cigar patio on the outside, which is great. But meshing all that together, I was like, the lounge thing is cool because. And then I brought the locker concept in while we were under construction. People were stopping by to see the place
and sold out immediately. Right?
Sold out, it wasn't even going to be like the original concept was like if Josh Safran's coming in here and spending $100,000 a year, I'm gonna be like, Josh, hey man, you're a great client. Why don't you grab a locker and keep some booze in there? Which if you were spending that much, you'd get locker. One free anyway. And so
probably it'd be full.
Right, and it'd be full. And so I was like, my original concept was I'll just throw locker to guys to get them to come back in more, right, and to bring people in. And so the first 4 people that came in during construction, they're like, how much is a locker? And the first 2, I was like, no, like, I don't know. And at third and fourth, I was like, all right, this is a thing. I'm going to have to reevaluate, like, the structure of this. And so it was easy math. I was like, all right, my rent's about X for the year. There are 40 lockers. I'll divide that by 40, and that's your locker fee, right? So, I was like, maybe if I sell all of these within the year, those 1 foot by 1 foot piece of real estate will pay for the rent. And I thought, it'll take me a while. And then, man, as soon as we opened up and people walked in that back room and saw the concept and they're like, what do I get with the locker? I'm like, well, you can use the room for meetings, for workspace, for, happy hour, come hang out and bring some friends. And, we'll do this, we'll call you whenever we have sale first and first to know. And they're like, yeah, sign me up. And we sold out in like,
and you're like, crap, I didn't price these as expensive as I
That's exactly right. I was like,
underpriced them.
I should have doubled it.
Go back to earlier. Start on the higher suit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
$10,000 a locker. Yeah. That's a little bit rich for me. Well, how much do you want to pay? I'll pay $5.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was for the top row.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what I meant. So it turned into a really cool thing. And then pre-COVID, it was crazy. Like Cameron Smith, God rest that man's soul. He was one of my biggest fans.
Yep.
Sold him clothes for 27 years. It's been 29 years I've been in business now. He's been gone for a couple
Out of the trunk of your car.
Trunk of my car. Well, he's one of my clients at my mentor's place in Fort Smith when we first started. But he would bring every freaking person in Northwest Arkansas into that lounge. And it just created a really cool environment. And we still have a lot of people that are regulars. Like we know Thursday afternoon this guy's going to come in with his crew and stuff like that. And so it's been really cool. And so the flip side of it is that lounge gave us a place to do trunk shows, to have our events, it's just a great space for us to also have as an event space, right? And so it's dual purpose. So when we had that, right after we opened up, everything was so successful. We acquired an existing clothing business in Bentonville called D&E, is Denim and Essentials. And it wasn't going well, so my partner was involved in it, so he bought everybody else out of it. And the idea was we were doing so well immediately out of the gate that maybe we could turn that around if we changed the concept to luxury clothing.
This was the one on the square.
One on the square in Bentonville, yeah, right. Not on the square, but right on.
Right next to Onyx.
Yeah. And we tried a couple of things. We actually did a partnership with 11T, which is a brand we do business with, that we made it an 11T concept store. Like, it was the first one that they had ever done. And they just couldn't facilitate it very well. They weren't set up as a brand to provide enough clothing, and it was a disaster. So we shifted the concept to just being Hubbard Clothing Company. We were in the process. It did have 2 spaces. We were in the process of building out the club side when COVID hit. And so we had painted the club side Hubbard blue. We had the clothing on one side. Caleb was running it, Caleb Pennington. He was running that shop. And, I'd made promises to him and a couple other guys. And at the same time, we decided we were going to open a denim shop down in Fayetteville. So we took down this really cool space, had a bank vault in the back, and thought it would be a cool spot for...
You've been to the spot?
Yeah, cool spot for selling, casual wear and denim. Again, we were brand new, 7 months in. We weren't turning a profit in that space yet. And so between Caleb trying to get things going in Bentonville and this thing still not turning a profit yet because it's so young in Fayetteville, the Rogers store was doing its thing, but it couldn't support both of those, and then COVID hit. And we had to quickly reevaluate everything. So we closed Bentonville, we closed Fayetteville, and we rallied the troops. I told Caleb, I was like, I know I made you promises, but didn't know about COVID.
How dare you?
Yeah, and so we brought him into the main store. We got out of the inventory in Fayetteville and had to let that guy go, which he was a super nice kid. Had no expectations. But the Waltons were kind enough to let us out of the lease. I'd like to have back now. Yeah. But, with everything going on, it was just crazy. But the build out in Fayetteville was so cool. I was like, and it was not an expensive lease. So we sat on it, even though we probably shouldn't have with everything going on in the world, just to see what would happen. And the landlords kept on saying, hey, we'll let you out of this one. And I was like, yeah, I bet you would. Because as soon as this is over, you're going to triple that rent because we put a really nice build out into that space. And when we saw things getting better, I was like, I don't think I want to put inventory and employees and everything else in that space again. But this membership club thing is kind of taking off. And so I slowly started, self-funding a little bit of a remodel, putting plumbing. And so we put a bourbon bar in there that's not staffed. We built lockers, and what used to be our fitting rooms was the bank vault in the back. And so I built the lockers inside the vault, so you got to go through this 120-year-old vault door to get to the lockers.
So cool.
It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And then because of COVID, the business next door ended up folding, and the landlords came to me and they said, hey, they're moving out of this space next door that's adjacent, and you have a pass-through if you want it. Well, I was like, so I'll take it. So we doubled our space there. And so now we have this cool speakeasy that's members only. It's got a thumbprint lock on the door. Members can access it 24/7 for, I've got guys that do Bible studies in the morning that are members. I got guys that go to poker nights. I got guys that just pregame dinners in Fayetteville.
The only thing you're responsible for is the thumbprint and collecting the dues. And inside, you walk in there's no bartender, there's nobody working there.
Yeah, so it's serve
just
yourself.
your own spot.
You got your locker, and
So there's almost no overhead other than rent.
Yeah,
and cleaning fees occasionally.
Yeah. We have somebody that's regularly cleaning. Caleb, I basically put him in charge of all the programming. So
you guys do a ton of jazz nights.
Yeah, we do jazz nights every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
We do comedy nights once a month. It's cool. It's real cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fun. I'm a big proponent. My business partner Steve Clark, he we were both from Fort Smith. That's how we know each other. And if you know anything about Fort Smith, it was kind of a horrible town for a long time. And Steve had to live there. Like, it's where he grew up, his family's there, and his business was there. And he's since moved up here. But, I was always like, man, why don't you move out of there? He's like, nah, it's, got this and I got that. And so he eventually, like, after his businesses really, really took off, he started funding all these cool things at Fort Smith. And so all the murals that are in Fort Smith, that whole art festival, like anything cool that happened in Fort Smith in the last 10 years pretty much was probably Steve Clark. And all that to say, the statement he made to me was, if you don't like the place you live, make it better. If you want something for yourself, like, and it's not there, do it, right? And so I feel like we're just creating little pockets of things that we want to be involved in, and we like jazz, and we like comedy, and we like speakeasies. So we just did it to for ourselves, but it's also it meshes really well with the clothing part, because the type of people we attract are the type of people that are probably into that.
Yep.
And then it just keeps us in the conversation, right? It's something cool. It's unusual for what we do to have something like that attached to it.
Yep, we're running short on time, but I do want to hear a bit about the fishing resort that you have.
Yeah.
So again, it's just that's like the next evolution of Hubbard experience.
Yeah. So I'll give you the abridged version. So during COVID, my wife wanted to rent a cabin, and like an idiot, I was like, yeah, okay. And then you couldn't find one for 9 months, right? And so then I'm like, I'm gonna buy a cabin. If it's that popular, I'm buying one. We'll put it on Airbnb. And so I started looking, and at the time I'd gotten back into fly fishing pretty heavily because I didn't have anything else to do during COVID, and fell in love again with fly fishing. And I started looking around for cabins, and I found one on the water, on the White, right below Beaver Dam, so it was only 45 minutes away. I was like, this is crazy.
And you've been to this spot?
No, I've never been.
No, Dave has. Dave came out, and we got to fish together out there, and he's got a locker. But so I called a buddy of mine, and I was like, hey, I found a cabin, and I'm thinking about buying it. You want to jump in on it with me? And so, long story short, 3 of my friends ended up being my partners in it, and we bought this place. And when we went out there to go kind of back up, when we went to go look at it initially, there was a lot of growth on the river, and so we couldn't even see that there was a second cabin on the property that was like another little small parcel and for sale also. And it was like a tiny little 1,100 square foot Lincoln log looking cabin. So I called my friends, and I was like, hey guys, there's another cabin like 30 feet away. Like, didn't even know it was there, and it's for sale, and it's practically free. And so he's like, wrap it up.
Practically free.
Practically free. I mean, compared to what it should have been on the water. And because I guess these people had been trying to sell it for a while and couldn't sell it. So we wrapped the whole property up. We ended up buying 50 acres in both cabins. And the idea was we'll put the little cabin on Airbnb and fund it that way. The first weekend I stayed out there, I'm sitting there, and I've got a little boy with autism, as you guys know. And so one of the things about having a kid with autism, whenever you get away, you just kind of want to get away, and you don't want to, like, he's a lot. And so when you're at a place like that, you don't want him, like, you want him to be able to just be himself and not have to worry about what other people are thinking or doing or whatever. Yep. And when I say be himself, like, maybe he's got to run outside in his underwear because he doesn't care, right?
Matt and I do the same thing.
Well,
especially out the river.
You guys will be in good company. So I'm sitting there thinking, so if we fix that little cabin up and put it on Airbnb, it's going to be very affordable because it's tiny, and it's never, ever, ever not going to have people in it. And it's so close, I was just like, that's kind of a nightmare. I don't really want other people out here when I'm out here. Mm-hmm. Like, that I don't know, right? Yep. And so, light bulb, I'm like, it'd be cool is if we take that little cabin and turn it into the fly fishing version of what we have now dubbed the H Clubs, right? And we call them the H Clubs because our designer, Chris Goddard, put an H over the door to the one in Rogers, and it just kind of got called the H Club. And so I call my guys, and I'm like, I have an idea. And so they were like, love it, let's do it. So we had lockers built, we remodeled the whole thing, And we made it look a lot like, it's got the look and feel of Hubbard Clothing Company on the inside, but still rustic and still appropriate for being a fly fishing cabin. The bathroom is a little over the top. The bathroom is shockingly nice. Like, I wanted the bathroom to be so nice that you were like, why did they do that in a little log cabin, right? Because it's associated with type of clothing,
so
right?
the top.
Do you have members that are across all three of your locations?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Not a lot, just a couple who are part of all three. Usually it's somebody's into jazz and they live in Fayetteville, so they want to be a part of that one. Or somebody wants, the access to both Rogers and Fayetteville because they have a home here and a business there. Yeah, like it's that kind of thing. But there's a couple of guys that are really into clothing, really into the club concept, and they love fly fishing, so they wanted to wrap the whole thing up, which we have different tiers for all the members.
So what I'm hearing is Matt's going to get an invite out to go fishing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I heard today.
He's invited me a few times, and it's just never worked.
This is
He's supposed to come
true.
to Wyoming also, so if the two of us could ever have like
I did buy a fishing rod finally.
You did?
Yeah. I got a stealth craft.
Good.
Well, Donnie, thanks for coming in. We could probably go for 5 hours with you. There's so much cool stuff. As
Likewise.
business continues to expand and you have other things on the horizon, come back in and visit us.
I will, for sure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. What's the website for?
www.hubbardclothing.com.
And you can find all the businesses under there.
Yeah. We've got little links and descriptions for everything.
Well, cheers. Thanks for coming in, man.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Cheers.
Matt.